If I say never, never, then never becomes the ever. Just listen to the rhythm of that for a second. It's completely circular, it's obsessive, and it literally traps you in its own logic. That right there is the raw, cyclical wordplay we are going to be unpacking today. It's a line that perfectly captures the feeling of a mind wrestling with itself, desperately trying to find the exact right words to express something incredibly painful. So welcome to a brand new explainer.
Today, our goal is simple, but man, is it ambitious. We are going to truly understand the lyrics and bring the words of Heather's letter alive. We're taking a completely objective deep dive into the complex emotions, the jagged rhythms, and the really heavy accusations found within this intensely personal piece of audio. Acting purely as observers of the text, we're going to examine how the author uses lyrical structures to process a deeply fractured relationship. We'll break down the rhymes, the timeline, and the raw emotion to see exactly how this whole story is constructed.
Let's jump right into Section 1, the opening rhyme scheme.
Before we even get into the heavy history between the author and Heather, we've got to look at how the author actually masks their hesitation using this rapid-fire lyrical technique. I hope that this is clever. I wish things ended better. I never hit you when mad as ever. Now, the author explicitly states it's just now turning 12 and they can't seem to start the letter. So what do? They lean on a relentless rhyme scheme. Clever, whatever, Heather, better, weather, levers, ever, never. It feels almost like a nervous tick translated into verse, you know? They are stalling. They're searching for the courage to say what needs to be said, and they're using the rhythm of the words as a literal shield.
The rhetorical choice at play here is a classic use of internal rhyme and repetition. The author is taking sounds, specifically that ever sound, and just looping them over and over. Never, never sounds much better, but the never brings the ever. It builds this incredible rhythmic momentum. But if we look closer at the lyrics, this momentum is actually doing a ton of heavy lifting. It's completely masking a mind that is just racing with conflicting emotions. The author says they'd say anything to make it okay, but then acknowledges the harsh reality that Heather still fled. The rhythm is basically a coping mechanism for all the chaos underneath.
Which brings us to Section 2, unpacking the toxic history.
Let's transition from the rhythm of the words to the actual history behind them. Now, the letter doesn't give us a straightforward story. Instead, it gives us these nostalgic, deeply painful flashbacks. So let's anchor ourselves with the timeline constructed straight from the lyrics. It starts in the past with what the author calls a third strike. This was a moment of cheating where the author left and literally had to hold their breath so they wouldn't break loose and cry. Then the timeline moves to the conception of their child, which the author views through a lens of extreme deception. Next up is a period of perceived abandonment, where the author states they were left in a place called Cameron. And finally, we arrive at the present, complete estrangement, where the author's heart is just on hold.
This timeline brilliantly illustrates the vast divide between the two individuals post-breakup. On one side, we see how the author describes Heather's path, going back to a sheltered life. But on the other side, the author's own reality. Staying up in Cameron, feeling entirely abandoned. Even though the lyrics mention they still talked on the phone and emailed, the author notes that their reunion touch was rushed. The author had actually taken the time to get mad, while Heather, according to the text anyway, never did. They are living in two completely different emotional realities.
Within this history, we encounter a very jarring, undeniably dark admission in the lyrics. The author plainly states, "I know that I hit you, but the story plays out for more. More, more." Analyzing this text completely impartially, we see an admission of physical violence, which is immediately followed by a justification, or a pivot, to a broader, darker context. The repetition of the word more, said 3 times, is honestly chilling. It implies a deeply complex, cyclical history of mutual hurt. The author is basically telling us that the toxicity goes far beyond a single act. It's a deeply entrenched ongoing narrative between them.
And that brings us to one of the absolute most powerful phrases in the entire piece. The author describes dealing with sadness, the meanness, and gladness, and how it all mixes together to make madness. The ultimate result of all this madness, a sadless smile that is 100%. It is the ultimate masking. To survive this emotional slaughter, the author has essentially created a facade that is completely impenetrable, a smile totally devoid of sadness because that sadness has been securely locked away with the madness.
Moving on to Section 3, Jasmine, the innocent bystander.
There is a massive crack in that impenetrable facade when we shift focus to the most critical and honestly most heartbreaking element of this letter, their daughter, Jasmine. She is the innocent bystander in this lyrical crossfire,
and she's the absolute anchor for the author's deepest pains. The text shifts to some very heavy accusations regarding parenting. Quote, "Leaving our daughter neglected wasn't a respectable maneuver, but you were clueless to our newborn." The author claims that on the way to recovery, Heather was hugging me and texting he while neglecting their child. The author states unequivocally, "I never wanted that for her," and declares, "I don't think that you should be a mother." These are severe, absolutely devastating lines that highlight the deep resentment the author holds regarding the care of their child.
This resentment is fueled by the author's cascading fears. The lyrics talk about having to pack away memories just to get stronger, because the longer I hold on is the longer she's still gone. The author is absolutely terrified of missing Jasmine growing up. It is, in their exact words, killing me loudly with agonizing thoughts. There's a profound fear of the moment Jasmine starts asking where her daddy is in front of the other kids. And on top of that, there's an underlying anxiety about the mother being controlled by puppet strings from someone else. It's the agonizing, heartbreaking thought of being entirely erased from his daughter's life.
Let's look at Section 4, Deception and the Aftermath.
The pain of separation from their daughter is compounded by a deeply held belief about how she was brought into the world in the first place. The wordplay here is intense, visceral, and incredibly bitter. The author addresses the conception directly, stating they didn't even want Heather back before it happened. The lyric reads, "Your dedication to the deception was more complex, planned down to my erection." The author is straight up accusing Heather of premeditated deception, claiming that the pregnancy wasn't an accident but a highly calculated betrayal. It's a staggering accusation that forms the core of the author's ongoing distrust, leading them to debate the diabolical at your biological roots.
So the crucial point here is how the author processes this massive perceived deception over time. This emotional evolution is perfectly described in the lyrics. In the past, the days following the revelation made the author wallow around for months, watching things spiral into awesome, incredible, colossal stuff. They were stuck debating those diabolical roots. But in the present, the lyrics tell us the author's heart's on hold, but it's not waiting on you. The author is actively packing away memories so they can just get stronger. They're transitioning from being totally consumed by the betrayal to forcing themselves into a state of emotional armor.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, an unresolved conclusion. Here, all the clever rhythmic wordplay we saw at the very beginning drops completely. The internal rhyme is replaced by raw, visceral anger. Just look at the imagery the author uses as they imagine a future confrontation. They ask, "If she dies, how would you approach me?" And then comes this brutal metaphor, still with the puppet strings still attached to the spot in your back where you stab me. It's an incredible layering of betrayal, isn't it? The author feels stabbed in the back, but also views Heather as a puppet, controlled by those strings. The lyrics even mention a third party, stating, "Heather is mad at me because it impresses Calvin." The resentment is deep, it's lingering, and it's all tangled up with outside influences.
And then, the piece reaches its ultimate climax. The lyrical structure breaks down entirely into pure, unfiltered frustration. The author just repeats it, growing in intensity. "Heather, you don't fucking know me. Know me. Heather, you don't fucking know me. Heather. Heather." There is no clever rhyme here. There's no rhythm to hide behind anymore. It is just the raw, agonizing realization that despite the history, the child, and all the pain, there is a fundamental lack of understanding between them. The author feels entirely unseen by the person who impacted their life the most.
As we bring this explainer to a close, we are left with the ultimate emotional stalemate of the text. The author has poured out their toxic history, their fears for their daughter, and their immense feelings of betrayal, only to realize their audience, Heather, doesn't truly know who they are, which leaves us with this final, provocative thought to consider. How do you find closure when the other person doesn't even know you? It's a question that echoes long after the letter ends. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the lyrics, bringing these words alive, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.